Forgive me for the way that I titled and thumbnailed this video, but I thought it was too funny of an opportunity to pass up. The idea that the Lightning and the Vegas Golden Knights and the Leafs would all be a part of the same cap circumvention kind of strategy. Now, I'm saying it like that because Toronto, you guys might be the good guys in this situation. When it comes to the other two teams, Tampa, we already know what they did. Nikita Kucherov out the entire 2021 season. He came back. They won the cup with him. They were good enough to make the playoffs even without him, so there you go. There's how good Tampa Bay is in a season or a sentence summed up. And then you have, of course, the Vegas Golden Knights going out there, reactivating Jack Eichel and not making any trades in order to do that because they just put Mark Stone on the LTIR because he was okay during the All-Star break and the All-Star game, but no, once they come back, he is all of a sudden not good enough to play. Funny, but it's still within the rules. Now, when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, they had themselves Jake Muzzin, who got removed from the game against Montreal. It was an awkward hit with Friedman, and the result is a concussion, so obviously we're going out there and wishing Muzzin the speediest of recoveries, and hopefully he is able to go out there and fully recover as well. However, concussions are serious. And when it comes to the severity of concussions, obviously, Muzzin having a history of concussions, he had an earlier one this season when he was hit into the boards by Klim Kostin, so very not good to have back-to-back situations where that is an occurrence. But because concussions are concussions, we don't really know how long Muzzin is going to be held out. He's on the LTIR, which gives the Leafs the opportunity to go out there and spend more money over the cap because that's how LTIR works. Take a look at this article over here from Sportsnet. This is pretty much summarizing something that Elliotte Friedman said on TV, but this is all in written form, so it's easier to go out there and read it. The article's title is, "If Muzzin is healthy, the Maple Leafs won't hold him back." This is kind of why I say you guys are the good guys here, Toronto, if this is the case, but let's just go over the situation before highlighting why you guys might be the good guys. According to Cap Friendly, Toronto placing Muzzin on the LTIR frees up $5.625 million in cap space with the NHL trade deadline just under a month away on March 21st. So, they have themselves an ability to acquire another player or two that makes a total of $5.625 million, add him onto their roster, and as long as they don't reactivate Jake Muzzin before the season ends, they will be able to go out and use this roster properly heading into the playoffs, and once the playoffs comes around, no more cap space, no more salary cap. You have yourselves the new guys you acquired, plus Muzzin potentially coming back, and you have a roster that ultimately is over the salary cap, but it doesn't matter because there is no salary cap in the playoffs. Tampa Bay did this when they had a team that was like, what, $14 million over the cap? That was the meme that everybody was going out there and saying. And we have had many insiders in the Toronto media sphere talking about Muzzin and the idea of him being LTIR'd for an extended amount of time that goes past the trade deadline and past the regular season's end. This is an article from the Toronto Sun where Terry Koshin goes out there and talks about just that. With the Maple Leafs Jake Muzzin being held on the LTIR, speculation in the lead up to the trade deadline will indeed heat up. He says here that if Muzzin is able to return to the lineup before the end of the regular season, Kyle Dubas would not have the flexibility he would have with Muzzin out. Once Muzzin skates in a regular season game, the Leafs have to be cap compliant. And once Muzzin is ready, you can bet he will be back in game action, no matter what the calendar says. Could Muzzin's time on the LTIR help the Leafs acquire one of JT Miller, Konechny, Ben Sherrod, or Justin Braun, to only name a few? Perhaps. But we don't see it happening unless the Leafs are sure that Muzzin won't be back in the regular season, and that won't be clear for a while. Going back over onto the Sportsnet article, this is why I said Toronto is probably in a lot more of a better limelight than Vegas and Tampa are, because Elliotte Friedman went out there on the 32 Thoughts segment on Hockey Night in Canada, and he said this: the Maple Leafs are not in any position to rush him back. They're not going to do that, but what they did tell teams this week was that if Jake Muzzin is healthy enough to return before the end of the regular season, they're not going to hold him out until the playoffs. That's still to be determined, but they're not approaching this as if they're a team that has $7 million in long-term cap room to spend. There also is some other money that is already on the LTIR, which allows them to go to $7 million because Jake Muzzin is only making $5.25. They're not viewing themselves as a team that can go out there and just acquire $7 million for free and get off scot-free. They're very, very careful with this, and I appreciate that. You know why? Because for Nikita Kucherov, this guy was already skating months before he made his return in the playoffs. He was already on the ice, he was already participating in practices, he was already doing all this stuff, but the Lightning, in that shortened 52 or 56 game schedule they had, they kept him out the entire year. He had 0 games played. They were good enough to make the playoffs, yes. I don't doubt the competency of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but just in spirit, having Kucherov probably be healthy enough to maybe play a period in the full 56 game schedule, not play anything because they wanted to hold out and keep this roster together that was $14 million over the salary cap, or whatever the heck the number was. Forgive me because I don't remember. There was always a little bit of a sour taste because of what the Lightning did. Obviously, Vegas almost replicating that this season with the Jack Eichel stuff, got everybody super intrigued as well. We all know that Eichel eventually returned because, hey, he was ready enough. They didn't want to go out there and hold him out for any longer because that would be sort of a disservice to the player. And then they just conveniently happened to be like, oh, Mark Stone, he's also hurt, right? His back is still aching, and he's still got some pains from stuff that he had dealt with before. Even though he was already playing, we're going to put him back in the LTIR and just carry on like nothing happened. Now, once Mark Stone does return, it's going to be one of two things. Either he returns in the postseason and there's no trade the Vegas Golden Knights need to do, or he's all of a sudden healed tomorrow and he comes back and eventually the Golden Knights have to trade away a Riley Smith or a Dadonov. They got to trade away $9-10 million in cap space to allow Mark Stone to return, because Mark Stone is also making a pretty significant amount of money. Now, for Toronto, I really do appreciate that they're not looking at this in the same way, and that they're actively telling teams, we're not going to just acquire $7 million in players because we feel like Muzzin's going to be out for the whole year. Like, we really want to make sure that he has a significant amount of recovery time to go before we make a trade like that. At least that's what I'm reading from what Elliotte Friedman said on Hockey Night in Canada. Do you not appreciate the honesty here? Now, I know it's funny to go out there and meme on the Leafs, but I don't really want to do that, Muzzin's in concussion protocol, he's got himself a concussion, he already had a concussion earlier on in the year. This definitely is one of those situations where the Leafs could have had the opportunity. They had the luxury, they had the excuse to say, okay, well, Muzzin most likely will not be here for weeks. Like, he already had a concussion earlier on, now he has another one. Like, if the Maple Leafs went out there and said, yeah, Muzzin's out for the rest of the year, like, I would not have any problem with that. It's just the fact that they're willing to go back there and say, okay, if he actually does recover, we're going to be in a bad spot, so we're not going to treat it as if he's not going to recover. I like that a ton. And so for the Toronto Maple Leafs, kudos for you guys for not biting on a big opportunity here that you had. I get it, maybe because Toronto is Toronto. It's not Vegas, it's not Tampa Bay. There isn't the same media pressure and fan presence in those two other places compared to Toronto. Actually, I don't know. Vegas has some pretty dedicated fans. I take that back. No, Toronto is the biggest hockey center in the universe, so yeah, we got ourselves that. Maybe Kyle Dubas is just walking on eggshells because he knows if he says anything that's like, oh, Muzzin's going to be out for the year, or Muzzin, we don't expect him to be back for 8 weeks or whatever, he knows the media is going to go all crazy. Okay, so JT Miller, you want to go out there and get JT Miller? John Klingberg, how about that guy? Like, they're going to start throwing names left, right, and center. Leafs Nation is going to get all crazy about the conversations there. So maybe it was just a precaution to tell other NHL teams what he did. But the word has come out via Friedman that if Muzzin is healthy, the Maple Leafs will not hold him back, and they are not going to treat themselves as a team that has a $5.625 million coupon that allows them to go out there and spend that much money on anybody else, so that by the time the playoffs roll around, they have themselves a super team that is X amount of dollars over the salary cap, and it's going to be wild. They've got the choice to do that. They've got the out to say they could do that, but it doesn't appear they're going to do that yet. Of course, tomorrow we see, okay, maybe Jake Muzzin is out for 8 weeks and then this entire video is down the drain, but at the very least, I still do appreciate the fact that Kyle Dubas, at this point in time, before any announcements have been made as to when Muzzin is going to return, already told teams that they're not going to treat Muzzin as a long-term seasons-ending injury, and that they don't want to make any of these acquisitions just for the sake of doing so. So talk to me in the comments, what do you think about Jake Muzzin and the entire recovery process here for the Maple Leafs defenseman? He is arguably the best defender, like just shutdown speaking, on the team, and we've been seeing in games recently against like Detroit, for example, just how much defense really matters to the Maple Leafs. They kind of do need a guy like Muzzin, so on the flip side, I could totally understand why they would want this guy to come back right away, but the opportunity for a salary cap circumvention kind of hocus pocus does intrigue me to the point that I thought it was valuable enough to talk about. So drop me in the comments all your thoughts about this entire idea. I hope you enjoyed this video, Trolls 99, and bye.